The conference room at Apex Financial in downtown Chicago exploded into pandemonium the moment Tamara Ellis slammed the thick folder onto the mahogany table. "This isn't just sloppy accounting," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "Your CEO has been embezzling millions, and I have the proof right here." Alina Hayes's heart stopped as their eyes locked across the room, because the fearless whistleblower standing there was her wife, the woman she had spent 5 years pretending didn't exist to keep this very job. Gasps rippled through the executives, phones already lighting up with frantic texts, and Alina felt the floor tilt beneath her heels. Richard Harlan, the silver-haired CEO who had mentored her rise from junior analyst to senior VP, turned beet red, sputtering denials while security hovered at the door. Tamara didn't flinch. Her dark curls were pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, her tailored blazer sharp as the accusation she'd just dropped like a bomb. Alina's mind raced back 10 years in a dizzying flash, to the rainy afternoon on Northwestern's campus when she first saw Tamara laughing with friends outside the library. Back then, love had felt possible, until her parents' voices crashed in, demanding she choose family loyalty over that phase. She had walked away, leaving Tamara shattered, and buried the memory under ambition and silence. Now that buried truth was standing 10 feet away, exposing not just Harlan but the lie Alina had built her entire life around. Colleagues stared, whispers turning to outright questions. "Alina, do you know her?" someone asked. She couldn't answer. Harlan lunged for the folder, but Tamara stepped back, calm and unyielding. "The FBI is already reviewing copies," she said. "This ends today." Alina's stomach twisted with a cocktail of terror and something sharper, guilt that had never truly faded. She had married Tamara in a tiny Vermont courthouse 3 years earlier. Rings tucked away, no announcements, no photos on social media. It was supposed to protect her promotion track at Apex, a firm where traditional values still lingered in the unspoken culture, and shield her from her conservative California family who still believed she had moved on. Now the secret was out, detonated by the very woman she had once hurt so deeply. As Harlan was escorted away in cuffs, Alina slipped out a side door, pulse hammering, knowing the real storm was only beginning. Down the hall her phone buzzed, her mother's name flashing. She ignored it, but the past wouldn't stay buried. That night, alone in the apartment she shared with Tamara in secret, Alina paced the living room while Tamara stood by the window, arms crossed. "You could have warned me," Alina whispered, voice cracking for the first time all day. Tamara turned, eyes steady but pained. "You asked me to stay invisible, Alina. I respected that until staying silent meant letting a crook steal from employees' pensions." The words landed like stones. Alina sank onto the couch, flashbacks flooding in unbidden. College graduation, her father's proud hug when she swore off distractions. The years of hollow dates with men to keep up appearances. She had chosen safety then, and again when they reconnected at a finance conference and fell back into love. The secret marriage had felt like a compromise, love without risk. Now it felt like betrayal. Tamara sat beside her, not touching, the space between them heavy with everything unsaid. "The board wants a statement by morning," Alina said finally. "They'll dig. Everything comes out." Tamara nodded once. "Then maybe it's time." Outside, Chicago's skyline glittered indifferently, but inside, Alina's carefully constructed world was already fracturing, the first cracks widening into chasms she could no longer ignore. By dawn, emails flooded her inbox, reporters, board members, even old college friends who had heard rumors. The scandal was national now, and so was her marriage. She stared at the ring she had never worn to the office, feeling its weight for the first time in years. The confrontation at work had only been the spark. The fire was coming fast. Alina arrived at Apex the next morning to find her name already trending in internal Slack channels. "Hayes married to the whistleblower?" one post read, followed by a dozen shocked emojis. She kept her head high through the lobby, but every glance felt like judgment. In her office, the HR director waited with a grim expression. "The board needs you in 30. They're concerned about conflicts of interest." Alina nodded, throat tight, mind flashing again to that college breakup. She had told Tamara, "My family will never accept us," then watched the light dim in those warm brown eyes. For months afterward, Alina threw herself into classes and internships, convincing herself the pain would fade. It never did. Years later, at that Chicago conference, Tamara, now a forensic accountant, had approached her at the bar with a quiet still pretending. One conversation turned into dinner, then stolen weekends, until the quiet wedding where only two witnesses and a justice of the peace knew. Alina had worn a simple white blouse, Tamara a soft blue dress, and they had promised forever in whispers. Now that promise was public ammunition. In the boardroom, the remaining executives eyed her like a traitor. "Did you know about the embezzlement?" one demanded. "No," Alina said firmly, but the real question hung unspoken. How long had she been lying about everything else? Tamara's evidence was ironclad. Wire transfers, fake invoices, Harlan's Cayman accounts. The company stock had already dropped 15%. Alina's phone vibrated again, her sister this time. "Mom saw the news. Call us." She silenced it. After the meeting, she drove straight to their apartment, finding Tamara packing a small suitcase. "I'm not leaving," Tamara said before Alina could speak. "But I won't hide anymore. Not after what Harlan did to people who trusted him." Alina's temper flared, the guilt mixing with fear. "You knew what this job meant to me. The stability, the future we planned. A future built on lies?" Tamara countered. "I watched you deny us once because of your parents. I won't watch you do it again." The argument escalated, voices rising in the living room where they had once cooked dinners in secret. Flashbacks hit Alina hard. Thanksgiving at her parents' house in Sacramento, where she introduced a male colleague as her date, while Tamara waited alone in a hotel. The shame of that night had lingered, but so had the relief of keeping her inheritance intact. Now that shame was back, doubled. Tamara's eyes glistened but her voice stayed steady. "I reported the fraud because it was right, Alina. Not to punish you. But if staying married means I stay invisible forever, maybe we need to rethink everything." The words cut deeper than any boardroom glare. Alina reached for her but Tamara stepped back. That night they slept in separate rooms for the first time since the wedding. Morning brought worse news. Harlan's lawyers had leaked Alina's marriage certificate to the press, framing her as complicit. Social media exploded with speculation about her hidden lesbian life. Colleagues she had mentored now avoided her in the halls. Her mother finally got through on the phone, voice trembling with disappointment. "We raised you better than this secrecy, Alina. The church, the family. How could you?" Alina hung up, tears burning. Tamara found her on the balcony, the city lights blurring below. "I'm sorry I didn't fight for us sooner," Alina whispered. Tamara didn't answer right away, but she stayed close, the first small bridge across the chasm. The scandal was forcing truths into the light faster than either of them could process, and Alina felt the weight of every past choice pressing down. By the end of the week, the board placed her on administrative leave, pending investigation. She packed her desk under security watch, the same security that had dragged Harlan out days earlier. The irony wasn't lost on her. Driving home, she replayed the moment she had first said no to Tamara in college, the moment that set everything in motion. If she had been braver then, would any of this be happening now? The question haunted her through another sleepless night, the past and present tangled so tightly she could barely breathe. Tamara left a note on the kitchen counter before heading to meet with federal investigators. "I still believe in us. But belief isn't enough anymore." Alina clutched the paper, the first crack of awakening forming amid the ruins. The media circus outside their building made leaving the apartment feel like running a gauntlet. Cameras flashed as Alina and Tamara slipped out the back alley, hoods up like criminals. "Mrs. Hayes, is it true you hid your wife to climb the corporate ladder?" The question followed them into the car. Tamara drove in silence while Alina stared at her hands, ring glinting mockingly. Another flashback pulled her under. The night after their wedding, lying in bed in Vermont, Tamara tracing patterns on her arm and saying, "One day we won't have to hide." Alina had kissed her forehead and changed the subject, already calculating how to keep the marriage off LinkedIn and away from Apex's background checks. Now the world knew, and the judgment was merciless. At the federal building, Tamara gave her statement while Alina waited in the lobby, fielding calls from old friends who suddenly remembered her name. One colleague texted, "The board is splitting, some want you fired for the deception. Others say it's irrelevant." Deception. The word stung because it was true. She had deceived everyone, including herself. When Tamara emerged, they walked to a quiet cafe nearby. They want me to testify against Harlan in court, Tamara said over coffee. Publicly. Alina nodded, but inside she panicked. Public meant cameras, meant her parents watching from California, meant the community she had grown up in whispering about the daughter who chose that lifestyle. The guilt she had carried since college now had a name. Cowardice. That evening, her father called. Your mother hasn't slept. The pastor asked about you in service. Fix this, Alina. She ended the call shaking. Tamara watched from the doorway, expression unreadable. They're the ones who made you choose back then. Not me. The confrontation that followed was raw. Alina finally admitted what she had buried deepest. I was terrified of losing them. Of losing everything I thought defined me. Tamara listened, then spoke softly. I lost you once because of that fear. I won't lose you again unless you push me away. They didn't solve anything that night, but they held each other for the first time since the exposure, the contact a fragile lifeline. The next morning brought a lawsuit from Harlan's side, claiming Tamara's report was personally motivated, to ruin him through Alina. Apex issued a statement distancing itself from both women. Alina's inbox filled with hate mail and job offers from more progressive firms. Ironic timing. She spent the afternoon sorting old photos on her laptop. College pictures of her and Tamara laughing on the quad, deleted years ago but somehow recovered from a backup drive. The images hurt and healed at once. Tamara returned from a meeting with her lawyer, face drawn. The press wants interviews. I said no for now. Alina reached for her hand. Maybe we say yes together. The suggestion surprised even her. The past was still screaming, but the present was demanding she listen. Community judgment hit hardest at a virtual town hall Apex held for employees. Alina logged in anonymously at first, then revealed herself when questions turned personal. I hid my marriage because I was scared, she typed in the chat. That fear almost cost me everything that matters. The responses were mixed, some supportive, many cruel. But typing those words felt like the first honest breath in years. That night, over takeout in their living room, Tamara smiled for the first time in days. You're changing, Alina. Slowly, but you are. The compliment landed softly, but the road ahead remained steep. Harlan's trial date was set, and Alina knew she would have to stand beside Tamara in the spotlight. Flashbacks continued to intrude at odd moments. The day she told her parents she was straight again. The relief on their faces contrasting the emptiness she felt inside. Each memory pushed her closer to a decision she could no longer postpone. By week's end, she drafted a resignation letter. Not because she was forced, but because staying would mean continuing the lie. She hadn't sent it yet, but the draft sat open on her screen like a promise. Tamara read it over her shoulder, and simply nodded. The layers of time were peeling away faster now, revealing the woman Alina had always been beneath the fear. The confrontations were far from over, but for the first time, she wasn't facing them alone. Courtroom cameras flashed outside the federal building as Alina and Tamara arrived together for the first day of Harlan's trial. Alina wore a simple navy suit, Tamara the same blazer she had worn the day she dropped the bomb in the boardroom. Reporters shouted questions, but they walked past hand in hand, publicly for the first time. Inside, Alina took the stand as a character witness for Tamara's integrity. She did the right thing when I was too afraid to even admit who I was, she said, voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. Harlan's lawyer tried to twist it into motive, but the judge shut it down. During a recess, Alina's phone lit up with a text from her sister. Proud of you. Mom's watching the live stream. Small steps but steps. That evening back in Chicago, they faced their biggest confrontation yet. Tamara finally voiced the pain she had carried since college. You didn't just leave me. You erased me. I waited years for you to be ready, and when you finally were, the hiding never stopped. Alina listened without defending herself, the guilt no longer something to outrun. I was wrong, she said simply. Every day I chose fear over us. I hurt the person I loved most. They talked until sunrise, peeling back every layer. The family pressure that started with Sunday sermons and ended with inheritance threats. The corporate culture that rewarded silence. The self-doubt that whispered she wasn't strong enough. By morning something shifted. Alina sent the resignation letter. Apex accepted it within hours, offering a quiet severance that felt like hush money. She didn't care. For the first time in years, her calendar was empty of lies. The community judgment continued online, but so did support from unexpected places. LGBTQ advocacy groups, former colleagues who had been hiding too. Alina began volunteering at a local center for young professionals struggling with identity, sharing pieces of her story without naming Tamara. The work felt like atonement. One afternoon, while sorting boxes from her office, she found an old photo from their wedding day tucked in a drawer. She framed it and placed it on the mantel, visible to anyone who walked in. Tamara came home to see it and smiled the smile Alina had fallen in love with a decade earlier. "We're really doing this," she said. "All of it." The trial stretched on, each day bringing new evidence of Harlan's greed. Alina testified again, this time about the culture at Apex that made hiding feel necessary. Her words made national headlines. Her parents flew in unannounced, arriving at the apartment with tentative olive branches. "We were wrong to make you choose," her mother admitted over coffee. It wasn't perfect forgiveness, but it was a start. The multi-layered past and present finally began to align. Alina still woke some nights with panic, but Tamara was there, steady and real. Redemption wasn't a single moment, it was 1,000 small choices. Holding hands in public, updating her social media with their wedding photo, turning down job offers that required new secrets. The pain remained, but so did hope. One quiet Sunday, they drove to the park where they had once dreamed of a future without hiding. Sitting on the same bench, Alina turned to Tamara. "I'm sorry it took losing everything to find my courage." Tamara leaned in, foreheads touching. "You found it. That's what matters." The wind carried away the last echoes of old fears. The trial verdict was weeks away, but Alina already knew she had won the only battle that counted. The journey wasn't over, but she was finally walking it in the open. The verdict came down on a crisp spring morning. Harlan guilty on all counts. Outside the courthouse, Tamara stood at the podium with Alina beside her, their joined hands visible to every camera. "Justice matters more than any secret," Tamara said simply. Alina added, "And love matters more than fear." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Cheers from supporters, boos from Harlan loyalists. But the moment felt like final punctuation on years of silence. Back home, they celebrated quietly with takeout and the framed wedding photo glowing on the mantel. Alina's phone buzzed with job offers from firms that valued transparency, but she was in no rush. Instead, she focused on rebuilding therapy sessions where she unpacked the family pressure that had shaped her. Long walks with Tamara where they planned a real honeymoon they had never taken. The social judgment lingered in pockets. A few relatives stopped returning calls. An old mentor unfollowed her online. But the support outweighed the loss. Her sister visited from California, bringing their mother's favorite teacups as a peace offering. "She's trying," her sister said. "Give her time." Alina did. Flashbacks still came, softer now. The day she had deleted Tamara's number after the college breakup. The night she had cried alone in her dorm after seeing Tamara with someone new. Each memory reminded her how far she had come. One afternoon, Alina spoke at a local university panel on workplace authenticity. "I hid my wife to save my job," she told the students. "It cost me almost everything that made life worth living." The applause was genuine. Tamara waited backstage, proud and steady. That night they danced in the living room to an old song from their college days, laughter replacing the tension that had defined the past months. The painful redemption arc was still unfolding, but the weight had lifted. Alina started a small consulting firm focused on ethical finance, transparent, inclusive, hers. Tamara joined as lead investigator. Their first client was a nonprofit recovering funds from similar scandals. Working side by side felt like the partnership they had always deserved. Family dinners in Chicago became monthly rituals, awkward at first but warming over time. Her father even asked about their wedding photos. Small miracles. The community that had once judged now included new friends from support groups, people who understood the cost of hiding. Alina no longer flinched when strangers recognized her from the news. Instead, she shared hope. One evening on the balcony, watching the city lights, Tamara rested her head on Alina's shoulder. "We made it through the fire." Alina kissed her temple. and came out stronger. The multi-layered story of denial, exposure, confrontation, and awakening had reached its quiet peak. There were still hard days, anniversaries of the breakup, echoes of guilt, but they faced them together, openly. The journey of redemption had been painful, but it had also been necessary. Alina finally understood that true strength wasn't in hiding. It was in standing beside the person she loved, no matter who watched. Months later, Alina stood on a stage at a national LGBTQ conference, notes trembling slightly in her hands. Tamara sat in the front row, smiling encouragement. "I once believed hiding my marriage would protect my future," Alina began. "Instead, it nearly destroyed the best part of it." She spoke for 20 minutes about the layers. Family pressure, corporate ambition, the slow awakening that came only after everything shattered. The audience listened, some wiping tears. Afterward, young women approached her with stories of their own hidden lives. Alina listened, offered hope, and felt the last pieces of guilt dissolve. Back in Chicago, their apartment had become a home without shadows. Photos on every wall, rings worn openly, friends who knew both their names. Alina's consulting firm grew steadily, built on the very values she had once compromised. Tamara's investigative work helped recover millions for victims of fraud. They took that long-delayed honeymoon in Vermont, revisiting the courthouse where they had married in secret. This time they took pictures and posted them. Her parents visited for the holidays, bringing gifts and cautious acceptance. "We're learning," her mother said. It was enough. One quiet evening, Alina and Tamara sat on the park bench where their second chance had begun years earlier. "Do you regret any of it?" Tamara asked. Alina thought for a long moment. "I regret the pain I caused, but I'm grateful for where it led us." They walked home hand in hand under streetlights, the city no longer a place to hide but a place to belong. The chain of confrontations that began in that boardroom had led to something neither had dared hope for. Freedom. The past no longer controlled them. Redemption had arrived, painful and imperfect and real. True or false? Hiding your true love to please family and protect your career is ever the right choice?